Good morning, everyone. We call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the minutes from the September 19th board meeting. Second. All in favor? Those are approved. We have some guests. We're glad to be here. I guess we're going to start with Mr. Bloom.
Gerald, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Gerald Bloom, Cattaraugus County Public Defender. I began at the office as an assistant public defender in 2008, and my mentor, Mark Williams, retired in 2018, and then I took over running the office. So hope to provide a little perspective on the challenges and successes of implementing the Hurl hearing reforms. So anecdotally, when I began, I went to we had a series of night courts and family court, and went to a rural court in the state park, and I had a client who was incarcerated, who we didn't have a file. I wasn't aware of his incarceration. He'd spent a couple of days in jail. There was not counsel at first appearance at this point in time, and he had no identification, and he was in jail on very minor offense, driving without a license. So I was very concerned, and I contacted my boss at the time and said, what are we going to do? He doesn't have identification. It's not local to the area. Can we get him a hotel? How are we going to transport him? I ended up driving him into the city. And I had a conversation with Mark, a year or two later, what is the need within our office that's so essential? And I said, the first thing we need to do is we need a social worker, because we have this gap, and we are not meeting the challenges of our clients, and we're not doing enough. So Hurl hearing has been transformational for our office. And counsel at first appearance, and both sort of go hand in hand. One would not be possible without the other. What was a 5-lawyer office is more than doubled in size, and we've been able to bring in social workers, a parent advocate. We have 2 investigators now. Investigations occur at the commencement of cases. We've been able to gain valuable information to exonerate people right away by, I had a case where text messages of a threatening nature were made. The allegation was that it was made by my client. My investigator was able to immediately obtain text messages, communications, and determine that they weren't from my client. They were actually from somebody whose phone number was forwarded after a new phone was purchased. That kind of instantaneous ability to investigate a case is only possible because of the Hurl hearing funding. In terms of what social worker staff has brought to my staff, we also have a staff client liaison. So the person who is in charge of getting people housing in the Department of Social Services, we brought her into our office. And the other social workers have familiarity and connections with the drug and alcohol treatment providers, as well as with mental health providers, and they also have a patient ear. And so by having those systems in place, we're better able to help our clients through some of the challenges they're having. I tell my very conservative county, this is a real help in terms of public safety, because we are addressing core issues that are going to avoid circumstances of recidivism and other challenges. It also has been very helpful to my staff. I fully condemn Joseph Stalin, but he had an observation about his military, which was quantity has a quality all its own. And when we were able to get this larger staff, no longer was our office doing triage and having to deal with put out fires of things that were happening that required attention to the unfortunate a detriment of another client. Now my staff had enough capacity to handle the matter at hand and also tend to the other very important needs, and that was reassuring to them and in terms of our practice. The other thing we were able to implement as a part of the Hurl Herring reforms is an internship program. Some of our best attorneys have been people I've been able to bring onto our staff. We have a law graduate program, so if you're in your last year or second year of law school, we can hire you. We can pay you a less rate of pay, but then ultimately, if you pass the bar exam, you can become a fully employed attorney. And this has been a really helpful thing in terms of bringing in attorneys, having them acclimate to our culture in the office, be able to represent clients. And I found that our best, the people who have just thrived in our office have been those who have come through the internship program. And that is really helpful. And then in terms of counsel first appearance, Mark was very idealistic and he wanted us to immediately implement this program, and we did. But we have a geographically large county. I think soon we'll probably have a centralized arraignment part, which will be helpful. But we have a very geographically large county, and we have arraignments 24 hours a day, and that sometimes means at 1 a.m. traveling out to do an arraignment. And we were doing this with a staff of about 5 attorneys. We'd do full-time family court, we'd have night courts, and then we'd be up at 2 a.m. doing this. I would be on call 1 week at a time. Another colleague was 1 week at a time. For some of the more elderly members of our office, this was incredibly straining on them. It really was an intractable issue. But because we were able to hire more lawyers through the Hurl Herring program and spread out that load of on-call, and also incorporate some extra compensation for the on-call, it made employee retention much more, it addressed the issue of employment retention because we were losing people to the demands of this incredible obligation, but an obligation that was absolutely essential for the exact reason of that first case that I described, which was finding out that somebody was in jail and not being able to make a proper bail application and on a matter that really shouldn't have, the person shouldn't have been incarcerated. And, that means reduced incarceration, which is fiscally a responsible policy for our county. We do have some challenges because it is a conservative county. I like to point out points such as adherence to the Constitution, to the Fourth Amendment, the presumption of innocence, and the benefits of public safety that come with our representing our clients fully. So those are some of the challenges that we face in our county, but I would say that our quality of representation has exponentially improved as a consequence of the Hurl Herring settlement and implementation. It comes with its challenges that we have to navigate hiring, during the pandemic and other crises. There's always uncertainty, but ILS has been an incredible steward of state funds and professionalism and really helped us. And I have to say also that I'm blessed with a wonderful staff. And at first, when we brought in our social workers, wasn't sure how that was going to work. I think attorneys had to adjust to it, but they're very much self-starters and they very much guide cases and open our eyes as attorneys to issues that we may not have organically identified. And I just think that I give the attorneys a lot of freedom in how they handle matters, and just this dynamic ability to listen to all the ideas and the creative thoughts of the parent advocate and the social workers and the investigators has really enhanced our team. So I thank you very much for the opportunity to present my experience. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes. Public defender offices around the state often have great difficulty in recruiting staff. And it sounds like while being in Cattaraugus County, which some, as we know, don't even know where that is in the markets, but it sounds like you've been successful at that. Are there any particular tips and tricks that you use to recruit?
So it's challenging. We still have major challenges. I think there were a few factors that were helpful to us. I think during the pandemic, there was an attractiveness of of a stable employment. So that was a benefit to us. We saw an increase in our staff at that point. I'd like to give the attorneys a lot of freedom, but the internship program, I think, was one of the critical tools to being able to identify candidates early. And then once they were within the office, they found the benefits of it and enjoyed the experience and then wanted to stay, which I think that's the key also. You know, you're competing with Buffalo, which has more of a nightlife, and downstate. And so if you can get into the, into the area, appreciate the bucolic nature of the surroundings, there's a lot of charm to the area. And I think people do enjoy it and enjoy the work. So I think those are the factors that have really helped. Of course, the Earl Herring investment has allowed us to stay more competitive with other employers. So that's also helpful at attracting people. But those are the predominant ways we've been able to challenges.
What would you say are the biggest challenges you're facing, or I guess, what's the next thing you would do if you had the resources for it?
Well, I try to reassure our county legislature that the funding is very strong, and so that they have a lot of liberty to hire people and that they don't have to be concerned about the funding going away. So that's always an important thing to reassure. I think originally when we did council at first appearance, Mark and I agreed, it was terrible hardship to have somebody incarcerated overnight just to get to an arraignment in the morning if they had a job to go to. But I think if we incorporated a centralized arraignment part, that would create a lot of relief for my attorneys. We see how it works in adjacent counties, and they do it early enough where it's not going to be such a hardship, and it would provide a reliable process that would be helpful for the safety of my colleagues, because sometimes weather conditions occur at 2 a.m. that are not ideal. There is like an option to appear by phone if there's an emergency, which we do. But if by having a centralized arraignment part, that would, I would think, really address that issue. And I am hearing that it is getting closer to being a reality. And so I think that would be one of the huge improvements we could see in our county.
Would that be in the county seat, or do you know where it would be? Not determined yet.
That's yet to be determined. One of the holdups was that our jail wasn't outfitted originally, conceived to include an area where you could do that. And that's at the county seat, Little Valley. Of course, I have concerns also a little bit, because if you're coming from another end of the county, how are you going to find transportation to get to your home? So it comes with other problems, but that does also raise another benefit to the Earl Herring funding. We have now funding lines to deal with emergency transportation challenges. So my social workers particularly good at this, have made relationships with some of the cab services, with Uber, things to bridge that gap as well. So that is a concern. There is a city court that is nicely outfitted, and I think would be a natural place to do a centralized arraignment part. But I am of the belief that it's much closer to happening in the county seat.
And your staff is somewhere nearby generally, or scattered?
We're scattered.
Yeah.
Because it's such a big staff now, we have people based out of all parts of the county. The family court staff is often mostly, you can find a big percentage of them in the physical office right in Olean, and that is the most populated area for city court and family court. But we have people spread out across the county, which is helpful because we have daytime arrangements we have to run to as well.
So Daryl, how many cities, courts?
We have 2 city courts, a county court, and then we probably have between 30 and 40 village and town courts.
Right, and you have space in the 2 city?
Oh, so for a centralized arraignment part?
No, I mean for your office.
Oh, no, our physical office
Okay.
space is located right in Olean.
Yeah.
And we have space, but many of our clerical staff are full-time right in there. Our attorneys, some of them, for example, I brought one over from the district attorney's office. His home base was actually in his home in Salamanca. So he's continued to do that and comes to the office to put in his files, but still works in that office. But then we have like a physical space for several of the attorneys who are in the office every day, and then others that are more involved in night court come in and go and have less of a physical presence on a day-to-day basis.
Who handles conflicts?
So in family court, Law New York is the conflict office, and if they have a conflict, then it goes to the assigned counsel program. And in criminal court, it purely is the assigned counsel program.
How is that relationship?
It's a good relationship. Yeah, we have a nice relationship with them. Of course, one of the challenges I think that the county has in terms of family court is with the raised assigned counsel rate, which is wonderful because they need it to happen. It also, of course, creates a trickle down effect where they feel the pain of having to pay more county expense. And so one of the challenges is that in family court, the conflicts increase exponentially as families grow and we handle matters. So that's sort of an intractable challenge, just if you're ethically following the guidelines of who we can't represent. Sometimes they get a little blowback, I think, because of the expanded operations there.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear everything. So your evening arrangements, is that by a central group?
No, the arraignments happen 24 hours a day. For example, I do Monday overnight arraignments to Tuesday, and then each of the attorneys basically has one weekday overnight that they're assigned, and then we all rotate on a weekend basis. So I'll do actually next weekend, Friday to Sunday will be my weekend. And we have like a whole rotation. So the more attorneys we have, the more we can spread it out, the more we're able to meet that challenge and not burn people out, which is key.
And do you have someone assigned to bring the judges to the hearings?
Oh, so what occurs is we get a call from dispatch and they contact a judge about an arraignment. And then once they find the judge that's going to handle the arraignment, or sometimes they're waiting, they call us and tell us, okay, the arraignment is going to be in, for example, town of Salamanca at 11 p.m. Head over there and your client will be there and the judge will be there. And that's how they arrange it. But once again, going back to the benefits of a centralized arraignment part, and this goes back to another issue for public safety. Often deputies will be sitting in their cars with a client for hours trying to find one of the judges who answers the phone. And there are particular judges who do and some that do not. So by having centralized arraignment part, it will really solve a lot of these kind of challenges and be much more helpful and responsive to our clients' needs too.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. What's the caseload, the average caseload per?
For attorneys? Oh, so that's another thing that's gotten much better. I was joking with Burton and Patricia. I think I had a nice sleep in 1998 one day and woke up refreshed. But when I started at the office, I was losing a lot of sleep because the caseloads were very unethical. They were way out of hand. Now the caseloads are much better. They're still large, but they're manageable. And it's maybe 70 family court cases and 60 criminal cases. There's not a cutoff. Some attorneys who with a lot of experience and love to handle a lot of cases and they have more cases in my office, and some are newer and are more comfortable with a lighter caseload. So we try to meet the need and also cater to the attorney's style. But it varies. The entire office's caseloads are in the thousands when you incorporate criminal and family court.
And 10 attorneys, 12?
10 at the very moment. 10 or 11. But it fluctuates. Hoping to get closer to 13, 14.
So you have about 3 or 4 vacancies right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you want to go first? You want to go first?
I want you to go second.
Lindsay.
I'm Bob Nigro. I'm the administrator presently, and I'll have this job for another couple of weeks. I will be retiring after 15 years of doing this. I'll be turning it over to Lindsay Borman, but I'll get to that in a second. I really here really to thank you. Thank you for all the support you've given my office and the cause for indigent defense in Nassau County since 2011. I started in 2011. I think you started in 2011. And everyone that we've worked with, and ILS has been professional, supportive, and very nice. And it makes it very easy to deal with. But I'm going to get to that point at the end because it's your niceness, that is the weakness that you have. But the changes due to ILS funding, we've increased our staff, we've doubled it. We've been improving work conditions. We work in a building that's 100 years old. My desk was in the former chef's or cook's bedroom, but now we've redone the office and it's beautiful and really a nice, comfortable place to work. We have better tools, new equipment. We have a case management system that works beautifully. And we have more money to aid the attorneys for mentors and mitigation services and expert services generally. And the last thing would be our Attorney of the Day program. I don't know how I'm not sure how other assigned counsel offices deal with the requirement that the assignment of cases be rotational, but in a big county, it's almost impossible. So we have a lottery system. We send the attorneys to arraignment parts. So we've always had arraignment counsel first appearance, and that's where they pick up their cases. And it's the day they show up and what cases are available, that's what they get. And it works pretty well. And it is fair, and no one complains to me that they have too many cases or too few cases, but that's funded by ILS. And it continues to be an improvingly done through ILS, I'm saying nothing is flawless in the area of law, criminal law especially, but it works very, very well, and that we owe it to the Indigent Legal Services Office. I'm going to leave the future of my office, as well, it still is my office, to Lindsay Borman. Thankfully, thanks to ILS, I was able to put on a deputy administrator who shepherded the case management system. When they hired me in 2011, they said, "Well, you're very good with computers." I said, "I believe in them." We in the Church of the Luddite, you hire somebody to do that. And I did. I hired someone who was very conversant with computers and is the future of indigent legal services from our end of it. We have an excellent legal aid society, but we pick up a lot of things because there are places they don't appear, and there's things that they don't do, like homicides, that our office does. We have over 200 lawyers, 200 experts, and nothing is, as I said, nothing is seamless or perfect, but it works very well. My phone doesn't ring with complaints. I never hear from the judges. I never hear from the DA's office. I never hear, mostly from the attorneys. They want to know how to work the case management system, and the experts, that's the next step. They're going to want to know how to do that too. But Lindsay will take care of that. And she will make sure that the improvements funded by and large by ILS will continue to go on. So I'm going to turn over the future of ILS and Nassau, future of assigned counsel in Nassau County over to. The last thing I want to say is, and I'm not being disloyal, but I've actually gone to Canada to work on matters that had to do with with litigation. And they're the nicest people in the world. At one time, they're blessing and they're curse. And ILS people have been uniformly very nice. But I'm going to suggest to you, and I'll do this very carefully, flex some muscle with the counties you deal with. Because they don't understand. No one has really understood since the 60s what the requirement is to provide quality representation for individuals who can't afford an attorney, and in family court and in criminal court. They don't understand. They don't understand why they're required to pay for it, and they don't understand where the money comes from and how it's spent. They just don't understand. But it would be good, maybe if you had a public relations arm of ILS to bring home to the counties state through them are required to provide these services. And you make available generous sums to get it done. And that they need to do it in a way that is both efficient and effective. So that, I mean, I had problems for a number of years being able to utilize the money. And my nightmare was that I'd wake up in the next morning and uncover the newsday was Nassau County avoids millions of dollars in available funding because they weren't using the money. I know the city is worse, but it was bad enough that the funding wasn't. Now it is being utilized, but they need to understand that my world is divided into facilitators and hinderers. They need to be facilitators and not to hinder us. You've made available the funding, its facilitation ability is there. They need to understand, and that's probably, you're going to find more than in just my county, but other counties as well. Now that there's still a little oxygen left in the room, I'm going to turn it over to Lucy. And again, thank you all very much for your help.
I think that I came to the office in March of 23. So Harrell Herring was already a thing by the time I joined 18B. But there was a great deal of money unspent. And when I was hired, it was made known to me, Bob was very clear that it was my responsibility to figure out how to spend this money and get the services to our clients and the attorneys. So I think there are 4 stories very brief stories that I can tell that illustrate how that funding has now, gotten to the people. I am, much to my chagrin, an early person now. I don't know at what age that happened, but I get to the office early. I really like my job, and I like being in the office before court starts in case anybody has questions about where to go and where they're meeting, whatever. So I got to the office early one morning, 8:30. There was a fax that we received from Pilgrim Psychiatric Center overnight, letting us know that a person who claimed that they were an 18B client had been admitted for detox the night before. The only information we had was the client's name. So I logged onto my computer, went into WebCrims, entered his name, and I don't know why WebCrims never works, but WebCrims never works. So I couldn't find the case in WebCrims, and it occurred to me, we have a case management system. So I opened the case management system, entered the client's name, found out that his attorney was Bill Riggin, called Bill, emailed him the fax. And Bill said, "Oh my God, thank God, his case is on today. Thank you for letting me know. And they won't drop a warrant on him now. Thank you." So without Harrell Herring, there is no case management system. There is no way to identify his attorney. There is a man who's trying to get help and instead gets a bench warrant issued. We have, thanks to Harrell Herring, a Spanish-English paralegal who works in district court every day, helping the attorneys of the day. She'll translate for conferences, she'll collect paperwork, she will make phone calls to families to tell them where to go to bail out their loved ones. She will make referrals to Lyriac. She is a jack of all trades and just a gem of a human being. And the other day she was in district court and she saw one of our clients who she had conferenced a case with earlier in the hallway crying outside of arraignment B, which is where all of the DATs are arraigned. She asked, and this client was a native Spanish speaker, and she asked what was wrong. She needed proof of insurance in order to resolve the case that day. And she had called her insurance company, who told her that the card would be mailed to her in 2 weeks. So she would have to come back to court in order to resolve the case. And she was crying because she was fairly well convinced she was going to lose her job if she had to take another day off of work to come back to court to resolve this. And so Adele, being Adele, asked if it was all right with her. She called the insurance company and spoke to the insurance company. And the woman said, sure. So she called the insurance company and handed her phone to Adele, who in English explained the situation to the representative. And the woman's case was resolved before the court went down that day. They were able to magically email her a copy of the insurance card that morning. It's fascinating how that works. Then there was the client who was a discretionary persistent felon facing 15 years in jail. And his 18B attorney retained one of our mitigation specialists. And it was the first time this attorney had ever used a mitigation specialist in an 18B case, ever. The case was resolved with the client entering diversion. No death. And now there is the client who is facing a 41-year-old murder charge, whose attorney was presented with 187 bankers' boxes worth of 41 years worth of evidence, 2 prior trials, 1 federal, DNA evidence and newspaper articles and fully 187 bankers' boxes. And he called me and said, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And I said, I got you. I got you, because ILS has funded our second chair program. So now there are 2, soon to be 3 attorneys and a paralegal working on this case. They will have access to justice text. They now have Lexis access. The programmatic changes that ILS funding has made available make a distinctly concrete and human change every day for people up and down the gamut. I mean, it's a remarkable thing to see. As far as challenges, I think the challenges for us are threefold. The first is the county doesn't understand what we do, which is illustrated by an email I received from the Office of Management and Budget last week, asking me if both legal aid and 18A provide services, provide representation in criminal, family, and surrogates court. And when I responded and said, you mean 18B, right? I'm a lawyer, so subsections are important. You mean 18B, right? And the response I got was, no, county attorney says 18A is criminal, 18B is family. So that's the first problem, which is sizable. And I think exacerbates the second problem, which is that they don't appreciate that what we are doing is a wildly valuable public service that they should feel proud to be giving to their constituents. They have on our panel, we have the immediate past president of the Nassau County Bar Association, the current immediate and president-elect of the Criminal Courts Bar Association, the Criminal Courts Bar Association Practitioner of the Year, the co-chairs of the Criminal Law and Procedure Committee for the Nassau County Bar Association. We have a skilled and talented and robust panel providing the highest quality legal representation that I can imagine. This is something they should be screaming from the rooftops. This is a service that they are providing to their citizens. And there is no investment in that. And it's disheartening. And it causes a logjam between the funds that are made available and our ability to use them. We've been able to use them because sheer force of will. It is, I will spend this money and then I will spend 4 hours fighting with you on the phone to give me reimbursement for the money that I have spent, because it is my obligation to spend that money. And that can be exhausting eventually. That can be very tiring. The last challenge is family court and trying to get an equal investment into our family court, to our family court attorneys and to our family court services. That is what keeps me up at night. That is what keeps me up at night. But I love my job and I am honored to do it every single day. And I am heartened that Bob has entrusted the future of the office to me. So thank you for letting us be here and for letting us present. Thank you.
The first 2 issues you mentioned, new with the new county administration, or are they persistent and just sort of exacerbated?
I think they're persistent.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, the county leadership switched over in the last election, and I gather they're a little less favorable to.
Yes.
Well, here I must disagree with my deputy, while she still is there. I've been there for 15 years. I've been through all kinds of administrations. It's not political ideology, it's lack of understanding. Because government we all have to admit this, as long as things work, we don't look behind the curtain. We accept that it works and we don't kick up the dust and make it more difficult. They need to understand, and I'm sure it's other places in the state, that they were handed this unfunded mandate, but now there is funding available to make it work better, and they should utilize it. And as Lindsay said, they should glory in this. They should be proud of it. I tell them all the time, I said, we have one of the better sign council, I'll say this in front of all of you, sign council programs in the state. And it's because the county has not turned a blind eye, but didn't really hinder the effort that we have. But they, through lack of participation, can hinder it. And they need to be more involved in what happens. And I'm sure it's around the rest of the state. And I see the young lady down from me nodding her head. Because it's a matter of information and education, but you do good. Keep doing it.
Bob said something to me when he and I were talking about this meeting a few weeks ago, that the county's resentment to the state, on the state hoisting upon the counties this responsibility, when it's really should be this is a state responsibility, that that the counties still resent that. And, you know, Bob advised me, like, you just have to know that, you have to be aware of it, and you have to work with it. But now that there's state funding in a lot of jurisdictions, a lot of counties, ILS funding is at least half, if not more, of the budget for public defense. And so we have to work with that resentment, but also point to the state's contribution. And, you know, and I love what Bob is saying too, like, and Lindsay, that, and also Daryl, that, you know, this is an important service to the county in so many different ways. And hearing all three of you talk about the various ways in which this is an important service and a service the county should be proud of, you know, I think that really resonates with me, and how we can work with the counties to try to instill that sense of pride.
We had a meeting with the Office of Management, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Management and Budget and the controller, and they had, well, you have this instance where you put the same claim in twice. Now, we've done millions of dollars of claims, all of them. And my other rant is, you've never lost a dime through a signed council work, well, probably from legal aid as well. But they continue to be bean counters and obsessed with the notion that it could happen. And of course, that's what auditing is for. They have to be worried about it. But when you sit down in a meeting with people who have been doing good work for so many years and say, well, you know, this one, we saw this one twice. It turned out not to be true. And we didn't put the claim in twice. They asked us to put the claim in under a different distribution because now we had access to a different distribution, but they didn't know that. They only knew that when they had their spreadsheets and they saw the same thing here and the same thing here, they became apoplectic. That's the problem that they need to overcome, is that not to get out of their own way. They have to, I mean, audit, and audit is important because people will always try to do something they're not entitled to do. Not all people, but some people will. They need to understand that they can make this easier or they can make it harder, and then making it harder doesn't work in their best interest. That's it.
Oh, yeah, so just a comment and then a question. So in terms of helping the county leadership understand the importance of this, I agree, perhaps our office can do more. Often the people they listen to in the sense of how the justice system is working are the DAs and the judges. They seem to have more influence with county leadership normally than public defenders or assigned counsel should do. So you know, maybe we can think about ways to encourage the prosecutors and the judges to get that message in appropriate ways.
I was 24 years in the DA's office, and my analogy is to dancing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you both don't know the steps, people are going to get their feet stepped on.
Yeah.
And we never hear problems with the district attorney's office. Some people are not, you know, they look at themselves being on one side or the other.
Yeah.
But we work very collegially with them and with legal aid and with the judiciary. It's
Yeah.
just that the politicians don't understand
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you have a pet and you're going to give them a treat, and it's a treat they haven't seen before, and they sniff it, they look at it, they walk around it.
Suspicious.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that we might have more luck with the judiciary.
Yeah.
When there was with the second chair program, there's a homicide case and now has a second chair, and the comment from the head prosecutor for homicides at the DA's office to our attorney was, am I gonna see 2 attorneys now on every homicide? Well, yes, please, yes, thank you. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
So I think we'd have more luck with the judiciary than with the DA's office.
My question was this, as some of these changes are made available, as you now have funding to offer, mitigation experts, investigators, case management system, how has the sort of uptake been of the attorneys, right? Some of whom have been there for a long time and are used to doing certain things. Experiences I've had with assigned counsel is often we really have to push them, to use investigators. They're like, well, what do I need an investigator for? It's a simple case type thing.
So we're not at the place yet where we're paying for investigators, which
Yeah.
is one thing that I would do if we had more resources. In anticipation of that question, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Over my strong objection.
But, so in the beginning with the case management system,
Yes.
it was, to say it was a heavy lift is a
Yeah.
generous description.
Yeah.
And there was one attorney, who used to type, I don't know where he got the ribbons, but type his vouchers. It was fascinating to me. And was so angry with me for implementing the case management system. I mean, just apoplectic. And 2 weeks ago, on a Friday, he came into the office with a box of chocolate covered pretzels and Oreos and said, I'm getting paid 2 weeks after I submit a voucher. You were so right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So it's taken a while, it's taken some months, but the fact that it no longer takes them 4 to 6 months to get paid on a case
Yeah.
is life altering for people. I mean, life altering.
Okay.
The mitigation specialist,
Yeah.
there had been no mitigation specialists retained in ATB cases prior to our program of directly funding them. They are now so in demand. I need to reach out to Claire on Monday to find out how I can double my specialized services line, because I've had to go out and recruit mitigation specialists. So there's always a learning curve, and there's always, some time to get something off the ground, but
Yeah.
it is rolling now.
Thank you.
Hi, of course. Could you clarify what systems you have that enable attorneys to use investigators if there are systems in place?
So right now, currently, for an attorney to get an investigator, they still have to go and get an order from the court. So they'll put in an ex parte order. The judge signs the order. It's for up to 3,000, and then if they go up to 3,000 or want to go over, they have to go back and get a supplemental order, which is what I would like to change.
Do you have any statistics on how many cases investigators are actually used by the lawyers?
I do not,
I would
because,
bet it's pretty low.
I mean,
given what they
they
have to
do use, there are some who use them more frequently than others.
Yeah.
And there are some cases that pretty much always get an investigator. And there's also a spread between the attorneys who have been on the panel for a long time and the attorneys who are younger. So like, I find that younger attorneys, they will ask for an investigator as soon as they get assigned to a case.
Yeah.
So because the investigators and experts are still on the old system, I do not have. We're hoping to fix that within the month.
Family court has now exploded in the use of investigators because it's cheaper to use an investigator than a process server. And also, if someone has to be moved, if the client has to be moved, the judges feel fine looking down at the attorney, the ATB attorney saying, fine, get your client to Rochester on Thursday or something like that. And the attorneys, these people don't have families that could take them. Attorneys have to find, but we tell them, get an order from the judge, signing an investigator, or two, because there's a gender issue and there's a safety issue with respect to that, and get the investigators assigned to assist. And it's a savings to the county ultimately to do it that way. So we're using in more imaginative ways than we might have in the past.
Does your office encourage attorneys to use investigators, say, at least on felonies, not for transportation and stuff, but is there a message coming from the office? You know, we want, and has that message received? I see you nodding your head that there is a message.
Yeah, so last year, after the ACP summit, so not just this immediately past one, but the one prior, one of the topics was interdisciplinary defense teams. So working with investigators and mitigation specialists. So I came back to the office and started planning a series of CLEs to focus on the use of experts in defense, in indigent client defense. So yes, and we brought in folks from ILS to do the presentation. It was an amazing CLE. So the message is out there, and it's in the monthly newsletter that I write. The message is out there. The specialized services line now is entirely gobbled up by mitigation specialists, which is, I mean, it's great that they're so in demand and so being used, but I need additional resources to fund additional specialized services.
Lindsay, I just want to be clear on what you were saying. I think before you said that you are fighting sometimes to get reimbursed by the county
Yes,
for services that have been rendered.
yes,
And you're set up as many ACPs or legal aid society as a 501c3.
yes,
So you still have issues even then
yes,
getting reimbursed.
yes. That's,
The county doesn't have an understanding, the county doesn't have an understanding of the differentiation between some nonprofits and others.
Right, no, that's what
They just had it when they eat it the other day, we want you to behave like all the other nonprofits. Well, we're not like the other nonprofits. So-
Your Honor, I mean, I will, because, you know, I can learn my lessons. So we offer a 3-hour CLE every year, a criminal law and procedure update, and it's a huge CLE. And the presenters prefer for folks to be in person, so, which I completely understand. We also wanted it to be hybrid to encourage people to attend regardless of whether they can come. But I thought if we offer snacks, maybe it would be a draw. So I reached out to ILS to see if we were allowed to offer snacks and beverages, coffee service. And Jamie said, yes, you can do this on the CLE line. Would you mind writing an email? Not a problem. They wrote an email. I have the email saying that this is an allowable expense. We paid for the catering. We submit the claim to be reimbursed for the catering. Nassau County doesn't pay for catering. They get the claim rejected. Nassau County doesn't pay for catering. Said Nassau County isn't paying for the catering. The state is paying for the catering, but it's that.
It's the idea that they have to
Time and
put
time
money
again.
up and then wait to get paid back. And they live in abject fear that somehow the state is going, I'm sorry, we're not going to give you the money back. And that's the way they operate. They've extended themselves, they extended the county fisc, and they are very, very much afraid that they won't see the money, even though it's never happened. But that's what we deal with.
Nassau County has so much money. I just want to put it just got me to this day.
They're swimming in it, Judge.
So much. It's,
You know, I think, last year we heard from Andy Correa, from Wayne County Public Defender, and he reiterated, he said pretty much what you said, Lindsay, that, and he described an issue where the county was fully on board and trying to make it work, and it still took 2 years for them to implement the program, to send the monies. So, you know, so the bureaucracy is the bureaucracy, and sometimes it's a barrier, notwithstanding, you know, the will to use the money. But I hear what you're saying.
It's the notion that
Yeah.
it's called a grant, or it's called a distribution, but there's no money up front.
Yeah.
Got to come back for the money. And I understand why that is the usual process, but they don't appreciate that. Now, we just got DCJS money, and they sent us a huge quantity of money, and we appropriately will use it, but it came to the county. The county said, now how are you going to spend this? We explained to them how it's going to be spent, and now they're comfortable with that because they didn't have to extend it, didn't have to appropriate money to get money back. It's just, you're dealing with a different mindset of the civil political level.
Well, the city of New York, Mark J is notoriously late in making their payments as well.
Yeah, yeah, they do, yeah. It's even worse for the assigned counsel program. Yeah, they do advance the money to the trial level providers and the appellate level institutional providers. There are issues with the timing of that. And then they're notoriously late for seeking reimbursement from us. But it is something, I still remember, many years ago, when there was discussion of extending the Ralph Herring settlement to the entire state, and Susan Bryant from NISTA, I remember her talking about how this funding won't work as well if it's cost reimbursement as opposed to advance payment. But unfortunately, that's, not what happened. It's cost reimbursement. And it really varies. Like, we have some counties that are fine with the process. They've got it down. They've never had an issue getting reimbursed. An email from ILS saying that's permissible expenditure would be enough. And then we have counties like Nassau where it seems not to be.
They say that, but they don't live that way. They go, oh, as long as the Office of Management and Budget approves the expenditure, we're fine with that until they see the claim, and then they start, holding it up to the light and scratching their heads. It's a matter of information and education. And it's, as you say, Judge, it's different administrations because, I'm there for 15 years, but I saw them come and go, and they don't learn what it is, how this works. And that's what they need to do. They need to learn what ILS does, and you have an enormously difficult task in standardizing this throughout the state. I see that, and I credit you for being able to do it. But you've got an excellent system with the ILS people to get it done. It's just a matter of education and information.
So I want to circle back for a minute to something that, just resonates, or concerns me because, and you are facing so many obstacles and it's so difficult, but I can't imagine how I would have practiced criminal law without investigators, like on most of the cases. And so I'm wondering, as you're going forward, you have funding challenges, you're saying that there are budgetary issues about spending the money on mitigation specialists, et cetera, and you have people who don't use investigators, maybe because they're just old school and don't believe in them, although I think some of us who are old school do believe in them. But I'm wondering, the Rochester office looked at when people were qualifying for different panels, how many times someone had used an investigator, how many cases they've tried, things like that. And I don't know if that's something that you do, but it might be something you want to look at in the future of, these folks, if they're not using investigators, probably shouldn't be on the homicide panel, for example.
That's a really good idea. Because that question is not on our application, but it should be.
Do you recertify people?
We're starting to this year in a 3-year rotation.
In Erie, that's something that we did. When we brought people in for recertification, and we would bring everyone in for an interview, I would always ask, when do you use investigators? What's the last time? When do you file pretrial motions? We have people who never, who literally would sit in the interview and say, well, I've never filed a pretrial motion. And I'd say, okay, well, thank you very much for the certification. If they were younger, we would connect them with someone and show them some models and things. But that's one way. The simple fact that question was being asked when they were putting in an application or recertification would often encourage them. And it's an opportunity to say, all you have to do is call this number and we will connect you with someone, or we have these services available, that they would start doing it more.
You probably had a similar question about have you used experts?
Yes, exactly. That's true.
It's a really good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
I'm starting to notice with the explosion of mitigation specialists everywhere that there's less investigators out there. So people then say, oh, I want to use an investigator. Everyone's booked. Everyone is, on cases. Yet there's 100 mitigation specialists. Have you noticed it at all?
No, we have 8 mitigation specialists on our panel, and they're all being highly utilized, but we have a really strong investigator panel. And they are, they are being used. Like, everybody who has a homicide case has an investigator. Everybody who has any A violence, any major felonies, which in our county are A and B non-drug offenses, they all pretty much have investigators. We've gotten 2 new investigator applications that are popping to my head within the last couple of months. So I haven't seen there be a big issue like that.
I think the change in the discovery law has a lot to do with them perceiving a need to, because they're getting the information very quickly. And then if there's a gap, they can go find an investigator to do it. But they don't see that generally. They've gotten so much information, cameras and which, yeah, so.
Supercomputers. So many supercomputers that everyone.
It's in the brackets.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity and giving me the opportunity to come and say thank you to people.
Thank you for your service all these
Yeah.
years.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. It's been my honor and my pleasure.
What are you doing next?
Well, I started out as in the district attorney's office and I represented the people of the state of New York. Then I got the job as in the assigned counsel office. And well, I'm just going to localize and make it one person at a time. But it's still the same thing. Still learning to dance with the end in mind that you do justice. That's, I don't mean to preach, but both sides do that. And as long as they don't lose that sight of that goal, the people do better.
I want to thank Daryl and Bob and Lindsay for joining us today. This was really very interesting and it's
Thank you.
Excellent, yes,
Thank you.
really important.
And if you need any more advice, I'll be happy to come back. It's more of my wisdom as I'm giving you. By the way, don't forget to do this. She's very good. She's clips me and is, well down the path towards making it a much more efficient and effective system. And I take credit for that.
Good work.
All right, just a handful of office updates to share today. So since the last board meeting, we've had 2 new employees join us. Margaret Phillips, our attorney in charge for the Western New York Regional Support Center office in Buffalo, and Yavian Brown, who is a graduate intern with our research team. 2 title changes to announce as well. Gracia Nowak, who is an attorney with our statewide appellate support center, was promoted from assistant appellate attorney to appellate attorney. And Stephen Klein with our grants unit was promoted from grants administrator to contract manager. We are currently in the process of coordinating interviews and conducting interviews for 3 open positions: an Albany-based administrative assistant with our research team, an Albany-based family court representation counsel, and an Albany-based organizational development specialist. In addition to those 3 positions, we are openly recruiting currently for a Buffalo-based criminal defense representation counsel serving Region G, which is sort of anchored around Monroe County and the Finger Lakes area, but will be based out of our Buffalo office. That's it on updates.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is executive session. To do that, we need a motion and a vote to go into executive session. And it would be for the purpose of an appointment issue. And if we do, then we would need a vote at the end to adjourn the meeting while we're in executive session.
Okay.
All in favor?
Uh,